Nearly 3 out of every 10 people who bought a brand new Land Rover Discovery Sport turned around and sold it again inside 12 months. And that is just the worst offender on a list of 9 SUVs that owners walk away from in the first year. So here they all are, what that first year actually costs in dollars, and what those owners found out about the vehicle that no test drive was ever going to tell them. That figure isn't a forum rumor. A data outfit called iSeeCars ran the vehicle identification numbers on more than 18.5 million new cars sold across 2023 and 2024 to see which ones came back onto the used market inside the first year, and found that the average new car has a first-year resale rate of 3.6%, while the worst models run 4 to 8 times higher than that. A car counted as resold if it was listed and sold used between 4 months and a year after the original sale date, and they threw out anything with under 4,000 miles, plus heavy-duty rigs, ultra-premium exotics, low-volume oddballs, and anything out of production. That last part matters. This isn't people flipping cars for sport. These are titled, driven, paid-for vehicles that somebody wanted badly enough to sign for, and then couldn't stand to keep. I've spent my working life with my hands in these things, and I'll tell you what surprised me. It isn't the cheap stuff that gets dumped. Every single model in the top 10 is a luxury vehicle. Not one economy box, not one work truck. Here's the thread that runs through all 9 of these, and I want you holding on to it the whole way. The showroom sells you a badge, and the auction lane prices the hardware. Those 2 numbers have almost nothing to do with each other, and the gap between them is where your money goes. Watch for number 3, where the option that makes the SUV a family SUV is also the option that ruins it. Watch for number 2, where the manufacturer itself has now publicly admitted it made the wrong call on that vehicle. And number 1 is the reigning champion at 28.3%, which is a number so far out of line with everything else that I had to go check it twice. Let's start at the bottom of the list, with the only one that isn't wearing a premium badge. Number 9, the Mazda CX-70. iSeeCars named it among the non-luxury models most likely to be resold in the first year, alongside the Mini Clubman and the Mitsubishi Mirage G4. And the reason is almost funny once you see it. The CX-70 and the CX-90 share the same dimensions and the same body apart from some styling tweaks, but the CX-70 has 2 rows and seats 5, the CX-90 has 3 and seats up to 8, and the CX-90 is the cheaper of the 2. So you're paying more for fewer seats. Nothing wrong with the vehicle itself. The inline-6 is good, the interior is genuinely nice, the thing drives better than it has any business driving. But the buyer gets it home, a neighbor asks why they didn't just get the CX-90 with the 3rd row folded flat, and there's no good answer. That's a slow poison in a driveway. Through July of this year, CX-70 sales were down 28.1% to 7,161 units. Mazda's own CFO said plainly that the situation is not acceptable, and the company's plan centers on safety messaging and unspecified product improvements rather than pricing or powertrain changes. My read is that this one is pure buyer's remorse of the cleanest kind. No breakdown, no betrayal, just a purchase that stopped making sense the moment somebody said it out loud. That's the mild case. Now what happens when the badge is the whole reason you bought it? Number 8, the Porsche Cayenne. This one's short because the story is short. Porsche is the brand most likely to be resold in the first year at 16%. The Macan drives most of that, but the Cayenne is also in the top 20 most resold models. A new one runs from roughly $98,000 to over $162,000. Think about what a 16% brand-wide flip rate means. That is the marca with arguably the best engineering reputation in the business, and 1 in 6 of its new buyers is out inside a year. It isn't the hardware. It's the arithmetic of a 6-figure SUV meeting a real bank statement. And if that's happening at Porsche, imagine what's happening at a brand that has stopped selling cars altogether. Number 7, the Jaguar F-Pace at 13.3%. The average new one in the study went out the door at $71,000. Edmunds puts the first-year cost of owning a 2025 F-Pace at roughly $28,800, $29,000 for 12 months. Now here's the part that separates this from ordinary depreciation. The 2026 F-Pace is officially the final gas-powered vehicle Jaguar will build, it's the final model year, and the rest of the lineup is already discontinued while Jaguar reboots as an all-electric brand. Last November, it was reported as the worst-selling vehicle in the United States, 304 sold in 45 days against 211 sitting on lots, which at that rate is well over a year of supply. You bought a fine SUV. Genuinely. Good chassis. Handsome. Roomy. And then the company that built it quietly turned out the lights on the entire lineup, and every dealer in your area started deciding whether to keep the franchise. On top of that, a cyber attack in the fall of 2025 shut JLR's plants for about 5 weeks and cost the company $196 million in direct costs in a single quarter, with dealers reporting the disruption blocking car registrations and part supply. By the way, if you drive an SUV and want to keep it reliable for hundreds of thousands of miles without wasting money at the repair shop, I put together a guide called the 500K Mile Car Care Bible. It covers 101 habits that can help your SUV last longer, the warning signs you should never ignore, and how to spot mechanic upsells that quietly drain your wallet. To get your copy, just scan the QR code on screen with your phone's camera or grab it from the first pinned comment below. If you're the guy who bought an F-Pace in August of that year and then couldn't get a part in October, I understand exactly why you sold it. That's not remorse, that's self-defense. Stop and look at what you've seen 3 times now. Not one of these vehicles is broken. The Mazda is well built, the Porsche is superb, the Jaguar drives beautifully. What killed all 3 is something the test drive physically cannot show you, the future of the thing. Whether the seat count makes sense next year, whether the brand still exists in the form you bought into. That's the pattern, and from here it gets harder, because the next 4 are vehicles where the ownership experience itself starts doing the damage. And I still owe you number 3, where the box you tick to make it useful is the same box that makes it worse. Number 6, the Land Rover Discovery at 13.6%. The full-size one, not the Sport. Big, square, genuinely capable, 3 rows that actually work. And it rides on air. That's the piece I want to talk about because it's the piece that generates the phone calls. Air suspension is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of a steel coil at each corner, you've got a reinforced rubber bag, a compressor, height sensors, and a control module deciding how tall the truck should be at any given second. It's a wonderful system when it's right. It is a landlord when it's not. The compressors on many Discovery and Range Rover models start laboring somewhere between 60,000 and 90,000 miles, running longer and louder before they quit, and if the suspension takes minutes to level after a cold start, that's usually your culprit. One air spring, replaced at a shop, runs roughly $1,265 to $1,381. That's one corner. I saw an owner post a dealer quote of about $2,700 to replace a compressor with labor, then buy the compressor himself for a few hundred and do it in an afternoon once he'd read the workshop manual. And here's your safety note, because people get hurt on this exact job. Never get under one of these while it's holding itself up on air, and never work on the system without depressurizing it first. That bag is a spring under pressure. Treat it like one. Also worth knowing before you sign anything, the Discovery nameplate carries 31 known recalls. None of that is a reason to hate the truck, it's a reason to know what year 3 costs before you commit to year 1. The Discovery at least earns its complexity out on a trail. The next one has all the same ambition in a smaller package and a lot less excuse. Number 5, the Range Rover Evoque at 16.4%. A new one lists between roughly $53,000 and $64,000. And this is where I have to be honest with you about the data rather than pick the scarier number. iSeeCars publishes 5-year depreciation 2 different ways depending on which page you land on. One comparison shows the Evoque losing 53.6% of its value over 5 years, while the brand summary has it retaining 49.1%, which is a loss of about 51. Those aren't the same figure. I don't know which methodology is more current, and I'm not going to pretend I do. What both of them agree on is the shape of it. You hand over $60,000, and 5 years later, somebody hands you back a bit less than half of it. Call it 30 grand, evaporated for the privilege of the nicest looking compact SUV on the road, because that's genuinely what the Evoque is, and I've never met an owner who didn't like looking at it. Within Land Rover, it's actually one of the better value retainers, second only to the Defender with the Discovery Sport third. Read that sentence again and sit with what it implies about the rest of the lineup. Your 4 items from the end of this list and the numbers from here are the ugly ones. If any of this has been useful, subscribing is the whole ask. Nothing else, no bargain, just that. Because the next thing I want to show you is the model where Mercedes-Benz sells you the family feature and the family feature is the problem. Number 4, the Mercedes-Benz GLA at 16.7%. This was the lowest priced vehicle on the entire top 10 list at an average of 48,548, and even that was above the $46,093 average for every vehicle in the study. That's the tell. The cheapest luxury SUV on the reject list still costs more than the average American new car. What the GLA sells is the door into the brand, the star on the hood, the screens, the badge in the school parking lot. What it delivers is a front-wheel drive compact with a small four-cylinder and a Mercedes maintenance bill. And there is a specific trap sitting under this one right now. Mercedes has confirmed a full third-generation GLA on its new MMA platform, which handles both electric and combustion power, a version that absorbs the electric EQA into the same nameplate so buyers get the same styling and packaging either way. Meaning the current car, the one someone financed for 72 months last spring, became the old shape while the ink was still wet. Nobody at the dealership mentioned that, they knew, which brings us to the one where the option sheet does the damage. Number 3, the Mercedes-Benz GLB at 21.2%. 1 in 5 gone within the year. The average one sold for $51,015 in Edmunds puts the first-year cost of ownership at about $19,416. Depreciation alone accounts for $12,084 of that, and the reasons owners give run to the small rear cargo area, especially when you've ordered the third-row seat, the lack of standard features, and a general lack of excitement, particularly in front-wheel drive form. Now here's the mechanism, because this is engineering, not taste. The GLB shares its powertrain with the GLA and the CLA, which is fine, except the GLB is bigger, heavier, and pretending to be a family SUV. Same engine, more mass, more seats. A boxy little crossover on a front-drive compact platform, and then somebody in product planning decided it should have 7 seats. So you tick the box. You pay for the box. And what you get is 2 more seats that adults can't use and a cargo hole behind them that won't take a week's groceries with those seats up. The third row is the reason a young family chose the GLB over a GLA in the first place. It is also the single feature that makes the vehicle not work for that family. That's not a defect. Nothing failed. Nothing's. It's worse than a defect, because there is nothing to fix and nothing to claim. You simply bought the wrong shape of thing, and the only remedy available to you is the used market. That's my read on why this one runs at 21% while other Mercedes crossovers don't. And there's a second cut coming. A redesigned second-generation GLB debuted globally in December of 2025, with an electric version leading the way, offered in 5- and 7-seat form. Every buyer of the old one just watched their car become last year's model on a Tuesday. That's the family hauler failure. The next one is the opposite problem. A vehicle almost everybody agrees is brilliant, dumped by more than 1 in 5 owners anyway. Number 2, the Porsche Macan at 22.2%. The most expensive vehicle on the list, averaging $77,727 new. Owners are absorbing a first-year cost of roughly $25,074, including about $16,169 in depreciation. And the most common complaint is space. How little cargo room and rear passenger room you actually get, because every drive can't be a track sprint and a daily driver has to be practical. I'll say the unfashionable thing here. The Macan is one of the best driving vehicles of the last decade. Ask anybody who's had one apart. The steering is honest, the brakes are honest, the whole thing is honest. Which makes the 22% even more interesting because it means the flip rate has nothing to do with quality and everything to do with the fit between the vehicle and the life it got bought into. And now the part that turns this from a taste story into a value story. The original Macan went out of production at the end of July 2026, the last one built in Leipzig after 12 years. It had already been dead in Europe for 2 years, not because of any emissions ban, but because the old platform couldn't be certified under new cybersecurity requirements. The combustion replacement isn't expected until 2028 at the earliest, and Porsche has said out loud what most manufacturers never say. Volkswagen Group's chief executive stated that they were wrong about the Macan and that the company has responded by adding combustion engines and hybrids back in. The numbers behind that admission, the electric outsold the gas car in 2025, but in the first half of 2026 of 35,115 Macans delivered, 19,695 were gasoline and only 15,620 were pure electric. They killed the popular one on purpose and left a 2-year hole in their best-selling line. Here's the honest caveat, and it cuts against my own argument. The Macan loses about 40% of its value over 5 years, where the luxury compact SUV segment average is closer to 49. So the people who keep them do fine. It's the people who bail at month 8 who eat the whole thing. Same vehicle. Completely different outcome. The variable is not the SUV, it's the term of the loan versus the length of the enthusiasm, which is the perfect setup for the champion. Number 1, the Land Rover Discovery Sport. 28.3% resold within 12 months, the highest rate in the industry and almost 8 times the overall average of 3.6%. At an average new price of $55,948, nearly 3 in 10. Before I explain it, one caution, because I promised I'd checked this twice. Forbes reported the same Discovery Sport figure as 11.4% of all units sold, while iSeeCars' own release says 28.3%. Those are different denominators. Most likely one is measuring resales against every unit registered and the other against the sample they could track through both sale events. And nobody has published the reconciliation. I'll take the smaller number as the floor and tell you it doesn't matter. At 11.4%, it's still triple the industry average and it still wins. So what's going on? It's the entry point into Land Rover, it's genuinely capable off-road, but it isn't the most comfortable thing on pavement, and it's aging. The current model sits on a platform that has stayed largely the same since the Discovery Sport arrived about a decade ago. Its last major facelift landed in 2020, its segment has filled up with sharper rivals since, and it has picked up a reputation for being less reliable than most of them. Then there's the running cost. RepairPal rates Land Rover 2.5 out of 5 for reliability, 31st out of 32 brands. Their figure for annual maintenance and repair on a Discovery Sport is $1,780 a year. Consumer Reports has Land Rover as the second worst brand overall, with reliability data that consistently says these vehicles need a lot of attention from mechanics. Now let me mark the edge of what I actually know here, because this is where a lot of videos start lying to you. The famous engine problem on this vehicle, the timing chain on the 2.0-liter Ingenium diesel, the cold start rattle, the chain sitting at the back of the block where you have to pull half the engine to reach it. That rear-mounted chain design means access requires significant disassembly and early faults go undetected longer, and it mostly affects cars built before 2019. But that's a diesel story, and in the States you overwhelmingly got the gas version. So I'm not going to hang the American Discovery Sport's 28% on an engine most of you don't have. The honest answer is duller and more expensive. It's an old platform, a firm ride, a middling ownership record, and a badge that made someone stretch further than they should have. Nobody's car exploded, they just woke up one morning and did the math. Now the part that actually costs you money and the reason I made this list. Every number I've read you so far is about the vehicle. This next one is about you, sitting in a small glass office at the back of the dealership with a coffee you didn't ask for, being shown a monthly payment. That payment is the product, not the SUV, the payment. Watch how it's built. Carfax data has a new vehicle dropping about 10% of its worth in the first month and roughly 20% by the end of year 1. On a $55,000 Discovery Sport, that's around $11,000 gone before the first oil change. Meanwhile, your loan balance has barely moved because early payments are mostly interest. So there's a window, roughly months 2 through 30, where you owe more than the truck is worth, and the only way out of that window is time. The finance office knows the shape of that curve better than you do, and what it offers you is not a smaller price, it's a longer term. In the first quarter of 2026, 90.2% of buyers rolling negative equity into a new loan stretched to 72 months or longer, and 43% signed 84-month agreements, 7 years, on a compact SUV whose replacement was announced before you finished paying for it. Here's what that produces at scale. In the second quarter of 2026, 29.6% of trade-ins toward new vehicles were underwater, and the average amount owed on those upside-down loans hit $6,784. The average age of an underwater trade-in was 4 years, so this isn't people flipping cars every 18 months, this is people who kept their end of the deal. Their average monthly payment was $944 against an industry average of $777, and they're projected to pay about $16,270 in interest over the life of that loan versus $9,811 for the average new vehicle buyer. More than a quarter of trade-ins carried over $10,000 of negative equity. A record. Nobody lied to you, that's the thing. Every figure was disclosed, initialed, printed. The deception is quieter than a lie. You were asked one question, can you handle this monthly payment? and you were never asked the question that decides the outcome, which is what this vehicle will be worth on the day your life changes. Job, divorce, third kid, transfer, bad back. The payment answers a question about today. The term answers a question about the next 7 years. They let you answer the easy one, and they wrote the hard one into the contract. And there's a second hand in this. The analyst behind the study said that owner dissatisfaction is the obvious cause of these resale rates, but that financial hardship and creative dealer accounting also drive the number up, with some retailers registering demonstration vehicles as sold to boost sales numbers for their stores and the manufacturer. Asked whether the pattern reflects fickle buyers or dealers juicing their numbers, his answer was probably both. Chew on what that means for you as a buyer. Some percentage of these one-year resales were never really owned by a person. They were punched through as sold to hit a volume target, driven as demos, and then sold to somebody as nearly new. Which means when you're standing in front of a low-mileage example of one of these 9, the question is not just how many miles. It's who the title says the first owner was. You know the sentence now. Can you handle the payment? The next time somebody in a small glass office asks you that, you'll hear the whole rest of the question they left off. Step back from the money for a second, because there's something in this data I find genuinely worth thinking about. 9 SUVs, and almost none of them failed. That's the finding. These are not lemons, they're competent, expensive, well-engineered machines that people chose deliberately, wanted badly, and then couldn't live with. Which tells you that the hard part of buying a vehicle was never judging the vehicle. Any of us can spot a bad one. The hard part is judging yourself, how much room you actually need, how many miles you actually drive, how much noise you can tolerate on the way to work, how much of your monthly income you can hand over before the thing you wanted starts feeling like something you're stuck with. The old hands in this trade had a habit that has mostly died out. They bought for the job. You picked the tool for the work in front of you, not for the person you hoped to look like while doing it, and the reward was that you stopped thinking about it. It just went, and you got on with your life. That's a kind of freedom, and it's cheap. What replaced it is a market that sells identity on a 7-year note. You cannot fix that with a better SUV. You fix it by knowing your own numbers before somebody else offers to tell you what they are. So here's what to do with all this, in order. 1. Before you buy anything on this list or off it, look up 2 figures. The model's 5-year depreciation and whether a redesign or a discontinuation has been announced. The GLA's next generation was confirmed publicly by Mercedes' own chairman. Porsche stated a 2028 date for the Macan's combustion replacement. And Jaguar has said the F-Pace is its final model year. None of that is secret, it's just not on the window sticker. 2. Ask the dealer in writing whether that specific VIN has ever been titled or registered to the store, and how many miles were on it before you sat in it. 3. Make them quote the payment at 60 months, not 84. If it only works at 84, it doesn't work. That's not a payment, that's a subscription with a repair bill attached. 4. Price the 2-year-old version of the same vehicle before you buy new. On an Evoque, buying a 2-year-old example instead of new is estimated to save around $18 to $717. And per the study's own conclusion, these fast resold cars are exactly where a buyer gets a near-new vehicle well below new car price as long as you confirm you're getting the remainder of the factory warranty. 5. Budget the repairs, not just the payment. Air suspension, adaptive dampers, and big screens are all wonderful and all wear out. One air spring on a Discovery is roughly $1,300 fitted. Assume you'll meet one. And here's the one you can do tonight, in about 10 minutes, whatever you're driving right now. Pull up your loan payoff amount from your lender's app. Then get 2 real cash offers on your vehicle from online buyers using your actual mileage and honest condition. Subtract. If the payoff is higher, that difference is your negative equity, and now you know it instead of finding out on a Saturday afternoon in a dealership when you're already emotionally committed to something new. If the number is small, you've got options. If it's 5 figures, you've just learned that you don't have a trade-in, you have a debt with wheels, and knowing that tonight is worth more than any test drive. Now the comments. I want the confessions on this one. What did you buy and get rid of fast? What did it cost you to get out? And what was the exact moment you knew? The cargo area, the 3rd row, the ride, the service quote, the payment? That's the stuff nobody puts in a review because reviewers give the car back after a week. Owners are the only real data source there is. And to the people who are going to tell me the Discovery Sport is a fine SUV and the numbers are being twisted, you may well be right about the vehicle, and I'd like to hear it, especially if you've kept one past year 5 and can tell me what it actually cost you. Bring the receipts and I'll read every one of them. I always do, and the corrections I get from you are half of why the next one is better. There's a thread here I deliberately didn't pull, and I keep circling it. Some of these vehicles hold their value far better in the hands of the second owner than the first. The depreciation curve flattens hard right about the time the original buyer taps out. There's a whole strategy hiding in that gap, and I haven't finished working out where the sweet spot actually sits. That's coming, and if you want it when it lands, that's what the subscribe button is for. Take care of the one you've got and know your numbers before you walk in the door.